Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the... If there's anything I remember about 2013, it was Rayman Legends and how tragically underrated that game was. Also, there was the VGX Awards. You remember?
Welcome to the future of award shows.
Name one game that you're gonna play, other than all of them, and you like them all.
No, a lot of games look great tonight. And that's what's great about the shows. We get all the industry together.
I feel like a lot of
That. And it was here that No Man's Sky got everyone's attention. It was a space game where, I guess you could do everything?
Can you land on a comet?
Yeah, at the moment you can land on asteroids.
Do the animals eat each other?
Yeah, they do.
Will you be able to play with your friends?
Yeah.
Can you grief other players?
A little bit. You can also, like a lot of players do, just not gather resources.
This isn't an ambient universe. This isn't something you just wander around and look at trees.
Honestly, as hyped up as the game was, I didn't get it. I never really understood what exactly the actual game was. It was like that Dead Island cinematic trailer that hyped up everyone without actually showing anything. And in 2016, the game was released. But many of the promised features were missing, and beyond that, the game was incredibly buggy. And oh man. But 5 years later, No Man's Sky is a different game with an impressive number of regular updates. In fact, by many accounts, the game is good now. Not only that, but is one of video games' greatest redemption arcs. I admittedly haven't played the game until now, but after seeing heaps of praise for all of the updates, it was time to finally pick it up and discover just who is No Man, and how does he own the sky? I wanted to see how the game is now, and if someone like myself, who wasn't initially interested in the game, would enjoy it with all of the new updates. To be clear, this video isn't meant to be a review, but rather my personal experiences, which may or may not connect with you. So I figured what better way to do that than install No Man's Sky on my PS5 and download the PS5 patch to get the best experience possible, which was when my PS5 promptly decided to brick! No, really. I'm waiting for the box right now so I can ship it back. So I installed the game and its patches onto my PS4 and promptly hopped into No Man's Sky. As I have no friends, I decided to check out the single player mode, which presented me with 5 options. While I usually like to play a game on normal first, permadeath, let's go. This might not be the smartest idea for a game I've never played, but it was bold in center. Wait, I'm already being poisoned? Wait, hold on, what element do I need to gather? How? Maybe I just got unlucky with the starting area. Let's just load up another permadeath run and... Oh shit. Well, you know what they say. Third time's a charm. Okay, fine. I'll play it on normal. Before you judge too harshly, you have to remember I've never played this game before, so I didn't know anything about the controls, mechanics, or where to find the materials I desperately needed. So normal did make sense. And finally, I landed on a planet where I immediately started overheating, but had time to figure out how to solve the issue. And that was when I quickly discovered something many people had already mentioned about the game. The fact that everything you own and use is constantly breaking. So I found myself running around trying to collect carbon, oxygen, sodium, and other resources to regularly fix myself up, all while occasionally finding a cave to hide in from minutes in real time long firestorms. The first mission I had was to find my crashed starship and rebuild it, which I was genuinely excited to do. Of all of the planets I'd started on, I found this one to be one of the most bland and ugly. So I was pretty excited to get off of this godforsaken rock and onto the next procedurally generated nightmare planet. And after blasting off to my next mission objective, it took me right back to another part on the exact same planet. God damn it. My next mission was to gather another batch of resources and build a wooden base and shelter I could use for the extreme heat and firestorms of the planet. I've never felt safer in a wooden hut. It is worth noting that constructing my wooden base was actually one of the many features not present in the base game. I guess you had to just hide in caves for a while or suffer in hellish storms and cry. Although bases were one of the first updates to the game and added just a couple months after release with the Foundation update. Apparently, the No Man's Sky next update of 2018 is what let players build bases anywhere as opposed to specific spots, so I could have also been benefiting from that. They feel pretty integral to the game, as they give you a safe space to construct on any planet, so it's hard to imagine the game without them. So after surviving a firestorm and roaming around for even more resources, it was time for me to finally head back into space. This led to my first space station, which actually looks pretty cool from the outside. I don't understand what any of the aliens inside are saying, but you can ask them for translations of, one word at a time, and only one word per alien, per each alien race. You can also find knowledge stones on planets that do this, where I learned the Gek word for Gek. But back to outer space, where the real fun is to be— Wait, why can't I boost anymore? Oh, I need more resources? Of course. So you don't even get a respite from resource depletion and management in space. You're constantly running out of boost fuel, which you'll need to shoot down asteroids to collect. And lest I forget, there is space combat, but don't expect any Star Fox level maneuvering here. Anyways, eventually I got the ability for my spaceship to achieve hyperdrive, meaning I could quickly head to another star system and new planets, away from my fire hellhole. Hyperdrive fuel status empty. Ugh. After gathering resources for antimatter, I then had to gather even more resources for an antimatter housing. And you may be asking yourself, but Dave, why don't you just gather a ton of each resource at once? That way you'll have everything you need when you're ready to craft something new. That's what I thought. Stop stealing my thoughts. Well, you see, you have limited space in your exosuit/starship for resources, and crafting something also takes up a slot in said storage spots. There's also advanced resources you have to put into a furnace to craft, which also takes extra slots. In other words, you'll constantly need to manage what's in your exosuit and drop resources you don't currently need. But eventually, I blasted off and found a whole new set of planets. And this is when the game finally started to pick up. I discovered more of the main plot, where I had to try and track down a character named Artemis. This ended up being what I spent a lot of my time doing, and apparently, this narrative drive was actually added in an update a year after the game's release in 2017 as part of the Atlas Rises update. It wasn't the most interesting storyline, and as per No Man's Sky's MO, every single tiny update to the story took another round of gathering resources, crafting things, gathering more resources, and traveling back and forth between planets, but at least it gave me some kind of drive. Honestly, it's kind of unbelievable this wasn't in the game at launch, as it felt absolutely integral for keeping me at least somewhat interested in the game, while also teaching me some of the game's mechanics. After following this storyline to a third cluster of planets, I finally discovered a really cool multiplayer nexus that I could summon called the Space Anomaly, which is another feature that was added in the updates. While to my understanding the nexus did exist, the fact that I actually found players who I could interact with, very minorly, and try to join a group with was something that was part of the Beyond update of August 2019. And it was here in the Space Anomaly I received a new mission outside of the main story, to find a black hole. Oh hell yeah! Now this is what I'm talking about. Sure, it's 3 to 4 star systems away from where I'm currently at, meaning I'll have to gather a crap ton of resources, craft things, run out of resources I need, and craft more things, but finding a black hole sounds amazing. And on my way, I discovered some cool sights. This cool creature that... Oh. Goodbye. And a couple of genuinely cool looking planets with Saturn-like rings around them that looked especially cool at night with the ring glowing in the night sky. And finally, I did it. I found the black hole, something I was told to go through and would be super exciting. Now that is a cool looking feature. I've always wondered what the inside of a black hole would look like. Here we go. Wait, hold on a second. This just looks like any other solar system in the game. And how did I get on this couch? Oh, I just warped far away. So far away that I'm in a solar system that is completely disconnected from every other narrative storyline I'm following, meaning I'm just going to have to warp right back to where I was before trying to find the black hole. Worth it! You know, I traveled this far, might as well make a base on this planet that looks kind of like Earth. If Earth experienced extreme storms with lightning everywhere, Firestorms was quite possibly the most brutal planet of any I'd found so far, and was 580 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll just go ahead and name my new base Shithole. Back in this solar system with the Artemis quest, I found myself doing another addition to the game's 2017 update, procedurally generated missions, all of which were basically fetch quests, and some of which even required me to warp to other solar systems, meaning I had to gather resources, craft materials for a warp cell, and then gather more resources, and then craft more resources, and then gather more craft and resources, and craft more resources. Eventually, I decided to try warping to another player's base they dubbed Sentinel Colossus just because it looked cool, stared in awe at their masterpiece, and then realized it was just like the rest of the game. Completely hollow. It looked cool, but ultimately it couldn't actually do anything. And that was when I returned to the main game and realized something. No matter what happened, I was stuck in this perpetual loop of exploring procedurally generated worlds for resources that I was constantly running out of, only to blast off to a new bland procedurally generated world for more resources I was constantly running out of. That's it. That was the game. And the biggest criticism No Man's Sky faced at launch, which is still very much the meat of the game. It doesn't matter how many updates you slap on it, multiplayer or not, more variation of plant, fauna, and creatures or not, harder or easier versions of the exact same thing or not, bigger base building or not, the game was quantity over quality, procedurally generated monotony. No matter how pretty some of the planets might be, ultimately there was nothing worth exploring, as I knew it was just another bland procedurally generated world with the same basic crap on it. At this point, I need to mention a few things. For one, there is now a version of the game you can choose called Creative Mode, which takes out the constant survival elements. But that's kind of most of what the gameplay is, so I personally feel weird choosing that mode, as just about every upgrade you find is one to make this process slightly less tedious. It takes out what little gameplay there is in this game, and if it's a sandbox game you're looking for, frankly, there's games that do it better. Also, one more thing I need to say. This video isn't a review. If you like or love No Man's Sky, that's great. Maybe this type of resource management game is your jam, and I know that some people find the game relaxing. It's completely subjective, and I'm not trying to detract from your experience if it's a game that connected with you. And I want to be honest with my personal experience. I know that many people really enjoy No Man's Sky now, and all the new updates have turned it into the game they were hoping for. It's a difficult thing because I'm not trying to tell you how you should feel, and I know many people are going to tear me apart because of my experience. For my part, despite all of the updates, all I could find was an endless loop of tedious tasks in front of me. I do think the updates helped to an extent, especially base building and the narrative, but it still culminated in the same gameplay loop. And maybe resource management survival games just aren't for me. I don't know. The thing is, I tend to enjoy most games I play. Video games are my favorite form of entertainment, and I like practically every genre of game, be it RPG, platformer, adventure game, action game, FPS, farming simulator, racing game, sports game, RTS, Metroidvania, survival horror, room escape, strategy, name it, and I probably like it. I also enjoy sci-fi, am a huge Star Trek The Next Generation fan, and find outer space fascinating. But this is one of the very few games I played that I just did not understand the appeal whatsoever. There's games like Harvest Moon, Stardew Valley, or Rune Factory. While you're doing chores in these games, you still have a steady goal of building up your farm or romancing a character, and the chores manage to feel far less tedious as they're simple tasks, which is part of the charm of those games. While you can now build bases in No Man's Sky, it's ultimately about exploration, but the chores hinder that goal, and what's there to explore isn't really all that interesting. Every environment I explored felt bland, uninspired, and just as procedurally generated as they were. I love exploring both in games and in real life, but if you give me a game like Breath of the Wild, there's always something exciting to find around each corner, or at the very least, I can find pride in climbing up to the top of a cool looking mountain. Or there's Dark Souls, where every area feels handcrafted and oozes with lore and meaning. That doesn't exist in No Man's Sky. There's nothing exciting to find, and constantly refilling your dwindling resources isn't a rewarding feeling as you explore a little bit further. I mean, I did fall in this cave this one time, and I guess that was a little exciting because I didn't realize it was there as I was so focused on trying to run to the next resource I had to grab, and the first time I saw water was pretty exciting, until I realized it was just visual, and while I could swim, it didn't really change the gameplay. My reward for getting further in the game was that I had to then construct more complicated things that took more basic resources, and just another loop of everything I'd done before. And look, maybe if I put 100 hours in, I'd find an enjoyable endgame, but I have absolutely no drive to get there or to do that. And even if I did, it would just be crafting items I could use to better explore planets that have nothing interesting on them to find. And yes, I'm sure the game would have looked better on PC, or if my PS5 hadn't betrayed me and pooped out on me, but graphics can't fix bland gameplay. My criticisms aside, I do want to commend Hello Games. I can completely see the difficult position they were in when the game first released. They were a small indie developer who were picked up by a major publisher in Sony and ended up having this insane expectation and deadline put on their shoulders. They didn't have to release a giant number of free updates that turned their game into their initial vision. And yet, over the course of 5 years, they have. And while it isn't for me, I do think it's great what they did, and there are people out there who really love the game now. While I do think they overpromised by pitching the game on features they hoped to include, but likely hadn't implemented yet, in the end, Hello Games took the high road. Not a single update as of today has included some extra form of payment, and I think they were really passionate about their vision, even if I didn't like it. Luckily, after No Man's Sky, everyone learned their lesson. No one overhyped a game before release or got overly excited for a game before anyone had ever actually played it, ever again.
Had someone betray me just like that once.